these are the topics that are to be covered in this particular lecture. These are the tokens, keywords, identifiers, etc. in C++. And finally we will be going with what are the data types in C++. So starting with the first thing, what is C++? Okay, so there was a big company, right? एक बड़ा कंपनी था जिसका नाम था AT&T Labs. Okay, ये कंपनी का और this company were creating multiple research on computers in this company. Okay, so first one on Dennis Ritchie created language C. Okay, so there was first basic B language and then he created one language C. Okay, so C language had multiple problems. Okay, उनके limitations थे. Though C language is still popular today, it has some limitations. Okay, इसके paradigm में, उसके design में ही, उसके rules में ही थोड़े बहुत limitations हैं. हाँ, हाँ, है ना? तो डॉक्टर भी करना, तू टिकट ना होगा हाँ मुझे आवाज बोल रही है ओके व्यवस्थित येतं ना आता आवाज या आवाज सेंटर बंद कर थोड़ा बंद करायला हैं थोड़ा बंद करायला ना बराच वेळ लीक होत अच्छा तुम्ही बोल नाही मला माहित नव्हतं मी आता बोलायला सुरुवात केली परत चालू करून तू एडिट करशील ना ते ओके सो in this lecture we will be studying what is C++. First of all we will be having an introduction to C++. Then we will be studying what is C++, followed by the applications, tokens and keywords, and finally the data types. So, to give you an introduction to what is C++, we need to understand about this. There was a big company called as AT&T Labs. In this lab, there was a research being conducted on multiple computer languages and computer science in general. Okay, so तभी Dennis Ritchie नाम के एक बंदे ने एक लैंग्वेज इजाद किया जिसका नाम था C. Okay, but C has some rules. C has some. Every language has some rules. Every language has some limitations, and in this way, C also has some limitations. C is still popular today, but it has some its own limitations to it. Okay, so C language has some limitations. So to overcome these limitations, these are two different words though. These are developed another language called as C++. It is better than C. Okay. See, there are two types of programming platforms or two types of programming styles, you can say, paradigms, methods, whatever you call. Okay. So the first type is and the second one is okay. First one is functional programming, the next one is object oriented programming. Okay, so this language C only supports functional programming. Okay, on the other hand, that time Java and all these languages were more popular. Java supports, C++ supports functional as well as object oriented programming, that is also called as OOPS. Okay, it's called as OOPS, object oriented programming style. Okay, so basically there are two types of programming things. One is functional style, the other one is object oriented style. Okay, whenever you work in an industry level course, you work as a combination of both, majorly on object oriented programming. Okay, as you want to build applications, object oriented programming is more suitable, but C only supports functional programming. Hence C++, as it supports both functional as well as object oriented programming, it became more popular. Right now, today, in this era, we can see everything is developed as a basis as C++. Normally, you may have heard the buzzwords in computer science right now. They are data science, artificial intelligence, machine learning. One of the most popular languages used in that field also is Python. Okay, but Python is built on the top of C++. Okay, you have your operating systems built on top of C++. You have your games built on top of C++. Nearly everything that you work on today is built on top of C++ or C. Okay, so normally what happens is C++ is a fundamental of computer science programming. Okay, once you understand the concepts of C++, you can understand the concepts of all the languages that you make. Okay, so if you understand the fundamentals of C++, you can understand the fundamentals of C, and if you understand the fundamentals of C and C++, you can understand every computer language in the world. That's the fact. Right? So, what is C++ is clear. It's basically a language or programming language that you can use to have a functional as well as object-oriented program. Okay? So now, we'll be discussing about what is functional and what is object-oriented programming in later sections. But right now, just keep in mind that this is what is supported. As of now, we have covered two different topics of today's agenda. The first one that we covered is what is C++. The first one that we covered is what is C++. We also discussed the applications of C++. Okay, so in trivial way, what do you think are the applications of C++? Okay, so as per your textbook, the answer is you can communicate with everything. Basically, सारे ही languages अगर C++ को base लेके बनाया गया है, तो आप सारे modern frameworks में C++ का use कर सकते हो. Okay, so there is this thing called as databases. So database operations of C++ से handle कर सकते हो. आप compilers बना सकते हो. What is compiler? That we will be studying today only. We will add this in this lecture. What is compiler? Okay. Then we will be also learning about. Okay, हो गया. You can actually map every problem in real world to C++ and solve it. Also, basically C++ के जो programs होते हैं are as compared to the programs of those times. Okay, जो assembly language के programs थे या जो basic या B के programs थे, उसके comparison में C++ के programs are easy to understand and manipulate. Okay. तो ये हो गया what is C++ and what are the applications of C++. Okay. Now, first we will be discussing what is a compiler and then we will be going into these things. Okay. Okay. So as you all are computer science students, you know what is the brain of a computer. That's right. It's a processor. Okay. Processor is the brain of the computer. Obviously मैं ये नहीं बात करूँगा कि CPU brain है. No, CPU के अंदर जो आपका प्रोसेसर होता है, that is your brain. ओके बाकी सारी चीजें जो होंगी वो उसको सपोर्ट करने के लिए होंगी लाइक रैम विल बी यूज्ड फॉर स्टोरिंग एंड अल्टरनेटिव मेमोरी और एक रिप्लेसेबल फास्ट मेमोरी के लिए रैम होता है ओके दूसरा हार्ड डिस्क है जो परमानेंट स्टोरेज के लिए यूज किया जाता है तीसरा एसएमपीएस है जो बेसिकली प्रोसेसर और बाकी कंपोनेंट्स को पावर पहुंचाएगा मदरबोर्ड है जो बेसिकली सारी चीजों का इंटरकनेक्शन मैनेज करेगा राइट सो आपका मेन प्रोसेसिंग जो हो रहा है ओके आई एम नॉट सेइंग समथिंग लाइक एन हाई कंप्यूटर जहां पे जीपीयू सीपीयू सारी चीजें होंगी आई एम जस्ट सेइंग एक नॉर्मल कंप्यूटर जिसमें जीपीयू वगैरह नहीं है उसमें आपका कोर ब्रेन ऑफ द कंप्यूटर इज योर प्रोसेसर ओके एंड बचपन से सीखा है हमने कि अगर आपका अगर कोई प्रोसेसर है या फिर कोई कंप्यूटर भी होगा इट अंडरस्टैंड्स ओनली वन लैंग्वेज दैट लैंग्वेज इज ऑफ 0 and 1 binary language okay why binary if the current is flowing in through a pin or a terminal that is called as 1 if the current is not flowing through that pin that is called as 0 so basically binary stands की processor आपका 0 या 1 state में है right got my point okay so कोई भी processor के दो ही कीवर्ड्स अंडरस्टैंड कर सकते हो but C++ बड़ा language है how can a C++ language can manipulate the processor got my point so इसके लिए इधर बहुत सारे steps आएंगे let me show you these steps in detail okay so first you write a code in C++ समझो वो कोड के फाइल का नाम आपने abc ले लिया abc.cpp ये ppp स्मॉल होगा कन्वर्ट इट abc.cpp ओके ये कोड आप दोगे कंपाइलर कंपाइलर इस कोड को कन्वर्ट करेगा ऑब्जेक्ट ओके एंड ये ऑब्जेक्ट कोड बाद में जाएगा असेंबलर को एंड देन असेंबलर कंट्रोल करेगा आपके प्रोसेसर को ओके सो इतने सारे स्टेप्स होते हैं पहले आप C++ का कोड लिखोगे कंपाइलर एक लैंग्वेज होगा ओके आप देखो कैसे होता है कि कंपाइलर जो है वो मल्टीपल कोड्स करेगा राइट ओके आपका जो कंप्यूटर है मॉडर्न कंप्यूटर या फिर एंशिएंट कंप्यूटर इट कैन सपोर्ट नॉट जस्ट वन लैंग्वेज इट कैन सपोर्ट मल्टीपल लैंग्वेजेस जावा होगा सी होगा C++ होगा सारे लैंग्वेजेस को सपोर्ट करेगा राइट तो कंपाइलर जो है एक कॉमन ऑब्जेक्ट कोड में उसको बना देगा ओके ऑब्जेक्ट कोड यानी C++ का कंपाइलर क्या करेगा कि पहले C++ का कोड लेगा इट विल चेक ओके हर एक लैंग्वेज के कोई ना कोई रूल्स होते हैं राइट ओके फॉर एग्जांपल अगर मैं बोलूं इंग्लिश कंसीडर एनी लैंग्वेज लाइक इंग्लिश ओके what you can say say I'm going to say that I want to go to have a lecture okay I have a lecture okay ये अगर मेरा एक सेंटेंस है I have a lecture okay किसी ने मुझे पूछा what are you having right now or where are you going I will say that I have a lecture right now okay so instead of that consider अगर या इसके जगह पे I write something like this lecture okay यही चीज these statements only if I write them like this, I lecture a hat. Are these making any sense? No, right? These are not making any sense. This, sorry, this thing is wrong. Why? The placements of the words are wrong. Okay, this thing does not make any sense. On the other hand, here the placements of the words are entirely correct. Hence, this thing is making sense, and you can understand what I am trying to convey to you. That I have a lecture right now. Alright? In same way, every language, even in computer science, has their own rules, has its own grammar kind of thing. Alright? So, every language has its own grammar. In the same way, C++ has its own rules that you have to follow. Okay? So, compiler, what will compiler do? What's the function of compiler? Okay? It will first, okay, I'm just explaining this part, this compiler in here in detail. Alright? So, this is your compiler. Okay? It will get your CPP code and create an object code. Okay? This object code can be understood by your system or by your computer in a raw state. ABC पहले कंपाइलर फर्स्ट स्टेप होगा कि कंपाइलर इस चीज को करेगा टोकनाइज. ओके, टोकनाइज हुआ, उसके बाद the code that you have written in C++, this processor is also different. There are multiple brands of processors nowadays. So consider you are using an Intel computer and I am using AMD based Ryzen processor. Okay, so the processor is different. Okay, so this particular part will differ for every processor. There is one assembler type of part. There is a language for that part. Okay, like if you are right now learning 8085 processor, it will have some different set of languages, and 8086 will have different set of languages. In the same way, every processor has a little bit different language. Why does it have that different language, you ask? Because every processor has its own ups and downs. Okay, every previous version of processor won't support the capacity that is supported by a new processor, right? Okay, in the same way, this one. Okay, so what does this assembler do? This assembler creates your code. It will fast. The processor has very high amount of processing power right now. It won't understand how to manage that. Right? Got my point? Okay. So as your processor has very, consider you have Intel i3. Okay. So consider I have i3 processor and you have an i5 processor. Right? That processor is small. Okay, and your processor is pretty big and heavy load. ले सकता है. It can handle heavy loads. i5 can handle heavy load. i3 can't handle heavy load. Okay, so when you write a code in your programming, your C++ editor, it will run on your processor as well as on my processor in the same way. Got it? Why? Because assembler is handling the object. Okay, it is independent. Okay, it is dependent on the processor, and only this part is governed. Only this part is governed by your C++ software. Okay, so ये ऑब्जेक्ट कोड बना के नीचे दे देगा, बाद में आपका असेंबलर काम देगा. Got my point? Okay, in same way, पहले when you write the code in C++, you give it to compiler. वो tokenize करेगा. You will see what tokenize is exactly. Then it will match against the rules of compiler. Okay, and उसके बाद it will start the conversion to happens correctly if your code matches all the rules of the compiler, and then only it will start the conversion to object code, and finally you will get an output as an object code. Got my point? रूल्स के साथ चेक करेगा और उसके बाद ऑब्जेक्ट कोड में कन्वर्ट करके ऑब्जेक्ट कोड बाहर दे देगा. उसके बाद आपका जो कंप्यूटर है इट अंडरस्टैंड्स द ऑब्जेक्ट कोड. ओके, नेक्स्ट मशीन अंडरस्टैंडिंग. अगर आपको कोई भी ये बोले कि C++ का कोड एंटायरली एग्जीक्यूट कैसे होता है, तो वो सिर्फ कंपाइलर की मदद से नहीं होता. इट एग्जीक्यूट्स विद द फोर्स ऑफ कंपाइलर एज वेल एज असेंबलर. ओके, बट एज ऑफ नाउ यू कैन से कि ऑब्जेक्ट कोड बन जाता है और ऑब्जेक्ट कोड जो है वो आपका कंपाइलर वो आपका मशीन खुद ब खुद समझ जाता है. ओके, आई गेस आई एम क्लियर विद ऑल दिस. सो हमने अभी तक क्या क्या देखा? We saw what is a compiler right now. Okay, I am keeping this diagram as it is and I will be rubbing that. So what we have covered till now? We have covered what is C++, the applications, and what is a compiler. Alright? Now we will be learning about tokens, keywords, and identifiers. Okay? So basically, I write a common sentence saying the first one that we used till now. Right? So what we have done till now is I have a lecture. Okay, so when you say that I have a lecture is a particular line, okay, and that line is a part of your code or your compiling code. ओके, ये समझो अपने के लिए दिस इज अ वैलिड C++ कोड. एक ही लाइन का वैलिड C++ कोड है ही, भरेंगे नहीं बट कैंसिल. ओके, सो व्हाट इज टोकनाइजेशन? व्हाट डज दिस टोकनाइज मीन? कुछ नहीं, इट इज जस्ट अ फैंसी वर्ड टू ब्रेक डाउन थिंग्स. ओके, इट इज जस्ट अ फैंसी वर्ड टू ब्रेक द थिंग्स डाउन. ओके, व्हाट इट विल डू इज कंसीडर I have written this. This is the start of the editor. Okay. When you write in a notepad, right, you have a line over here. Below over here, you can't write. Okay. This is start of the line, and this is the end of the line. Okay. So, what tokenization means is it will separate these things. Okay. After here we have nothing. Okay. After here we don't have any line or anything. Okay. So what does this token mean? That is, I'll write the token as it is. Okay. So consider I is the first token. The second token will be this blank space. That is, so consider, let me call it as nothing. I won't call it anything. I'll just write here BS so that you will understand that this is blank space. Then F is another token, then again this is a blank space, okay, then A, then BS, and then F. Okay, so this is what tokenization does. Okay, what does it do? It basically break down whatever you have into small chunks. छोटा कर दिया. Okay, but here on a word level. Okay, so I, then this is a token, then you have a blank space, that will also be treated as a token. Okay, blank space is represented by, okay, you will be having this, but keep in mind for this lecture that blank space is represented by backslash t. Okay, there are also other ways to represent it, but as of now for simple things we are representing it as backslash t. So I, then backslash t, then have, then backslash t, backslash t, and again lecture. What is it doing? You are just chunking down the entire sentence into smaller parts. In the same way, tokenization is also doing the same thing. Alright? Got my point? Okay. So, what? Now you understand what are tokens. Okay? Then, what are keywords and identifiers? That is the main question. Okay? So, there are types of tokens. Okay? One of the type of token is keyword. The other types are identifiers. Okay, let me show you what do I mean by that. Okay. So we learned what tokens are. Now I'll be learning what keywords are and what are identifiers. Yep. Alright. So keywords are the tokens what are keywords? They are basically tokens only. But they are defined by compiler. Okay, compiler has the right over them. And what are identifiers? They are also tokens, same thing. But they are defined by the programmer, that is you. You are going to define them. Alright. When we will be doing our first code, that time it will be more clear that what does these identifiers and keywords mean. Alright. For a particular moment, let's consider a small code that I will show you. Okay. So this is not going to be a C++ code. It is just a small sample code that I will be showing. Okay. So okay. So this is my language. Okay, let us consider. Language ABC is one language. ABC नाम का language मैंने बना दिया. Okay, उसमें if I want to tell कि एक चीज number है, okay, मतलब एक चीज number अगर होगी so I can perform operations on it. Okay, what type of operations I can perform? I can perform operations like addition, subtraction, division, multiplication, etc. Okay, अगर कोई चीज एक character है, okay, so what type of operations can you perform on the character? You can show the characters to the user. It is first thing. Okay, जो आपका user होगा. There are two types of humans involved in programming. Okay, one is programmer, that is you, who is writing the code. The other one is user, who is going to use the code. Okay, starting में consider करो कि आप एक कोई app develop कर रहे हो. Okay, you are the programmer. जो आपका app use करेगा, that is a user or a consumer of your app. Okay, so basically मुझे कुछ चीजें user को दिखानी है. Okay, like consider उन्होंने आपने is finding the best route. ओके, दैट इज अ कैरेक्टर, वो यूजर को दिखाना है। आप नंबर भी यूजर को दिखा सकते हो, कितना किलोमीटर है, दैट इज अ नंबर दैट यू वांट टू डिस्प्ले टू द यूजर, राइट? ओके, सो अभी मुझे बताना है कि मैं एक सिंपल लॉजिक बना रहा हूं आपके सामने। वो लॉजिक ये होगा, यूजर जो है अपना नाम देगा, ठीक है? यूजर अपना नाम देगा मुझे, मेरे कोड को, और जो इसके अंदर जो वैल्यू आया था वो, गॉट माय पॉइंट? ओके, सो इस चीज का डेफिनेशन क्या था कि ये जो पार्ट है, I don't have any other markers, so whatever I am writing in blue is considered as input. Okay, so whatever this part, what is this? User input. Okay, so this is something that you will be defining. बहुत बड़ा कोड लिखोगे तो उसमें यूजर से इनपुट कैसे लेना है ये भी आप ही डिसाइड करोगे। ओके, दिस इज योर आइडेंटिफायर। This, on the other hand, is your keyword. This is again user वाला code. This is identifier. Okay? What does identifier mean? Identifier मतलब आप एक वैल्यू जिसके अंदर स्टोर कर सकते हो, that is called as identifier. ये आपने बनाया ना नेम, इसके जगह पे आप नेम 1 लिख दो, नेम 1 2 लिख दो, कुछ भी लिख दो यार, चलता है, वाला नहीं। ओके, सो आइडेंटिफायर और व्हाट यू सी इज बेसिकली आप बताते हो कि लेट x be equal to something, जैसे आप वहां पे करते हो मैथ्स में या फिर कहीं पे भी, लेट x be equal to something like this. बेस्ट एग्जांपल ऑफ आइडेंटिफायर इज इन गेम्स। ओके, आप क्या करते हो गेम्स में, देखो या मोबाइल नहीं, सॉरी, कंप्यूटर के यूजर शो होते हैं, दैट इज बेसिकली आइडेंटिफायर। ओके, जब भी आप बोलते हो कोई भी गेम अगर आपने खोला होगा तो उधर दे आस्क यू फॉर योर यूजर नेम। ओके, सो वहां पे क्या होता है, आपके नाम से डेटा सेव होता रहेगा, राइट? आपका प्रोग्रेस जो गेम में आपने किया है दैट विल बी सेव्ड, सो दैट इज एन आइडेंटिफायर। व्हाट माय पॉइंट, वहां पे आपके नाम से फाइल सेव हो रही है। यहाँ पे हम बस एक छोटा सा इनपुट जो यूजर से आ रहा है वो यहाँ पे सेव कर रहे थे, वहां पे गेम में आपके नाम से फाइल स्टोर हो रही है, बिगर एप्लीकेशन। ओके, सो आइडेंटिफायर क्या होगा? आइडेंटिफायर इज बेसिकली समथिंग गिवन बाय यू। ओके, यूजर नेम और पासवर्ड। ओके, जब भी आप लॉग इन करते हो यूजर नेम एंड पासवर्ड, तो यूजर नेम और पासवर्ड ये कहीं पे स्टोर हो रहा है, राइट? सो दैट इज बेसिकली एन आइडेंटिफायर और वेरिएबल बोलते हैं, बट वेरिएबल इज नॉट एग्जैक्टली एन आइडेंटिफायर। देयर आर टू टाइप्स ऑफ आइडेंटिफायर्स इन C++, but as of now you can say that variables are identifiers itself. Okay, then keywords मतलब क्या? keywords मतलब ऐसे words होते हैं कोई जो C++ ने अपने पास रखे। C++ has kept those words to itself. Why it has kept those words to itself? So that you cannot use them as identifiers, and those words have some significance. Okay, the words are doing some job. These words are doing some job of their own. That is the reason you cannot use those words as with identifiers or any other thing. Got my point? Alright. So, what exactly we'll also be learning what are the types of tokens, but not right now. Alright? For understanding, we'll be writing types. So first one is keywords. Okay. So what are the types of identifiers in C++? So these are the types of identifiers. First is keyword. That is what we have understood right now. Okay, I know what exactly are keywords and what exactly are identifiers are not yet clear in that sense. Alright, but when we write our first code, that time I will again explain what are keywords, identifiers, operators, strings, etc. And that time it will be much more clear. Alright. So what are keywords, what are identifiers? Then we have operators, strings and constants. Alright. So what we have learned till now is all this. What is C++, what are its applications, what are tokens, keywords and identifiers, and finally we will be going to learn data types. Okay. So right now we will be learning what exactly are data types and we will be moving ahead. Okay, so right now what very important question that will be asked in your question, in your exams mostly. Okay, so give me 5 minutes, I will be drawing a diagram that might help you understand what exactly are the data types. I just move this. यहाँ पे Okay, so now we will be studying what are the data types in C++. Sorry. So first we will be studying about built-in types, then we will be studying about derived, and finally user-defined types. Alright, so I erase this part. We can work on it. Okay, chalo. So first we will be seeing data type term. What do you mean by a data type? So do you remember the program that I had written over there? What I had said is there will be character input as name. So this I said ये keyword है. Right? What does this character mean? What I am saying about the name? So name is an identifier, okay, and this is a keyword. Okay. So what I am trying to tell computer is how to interpret the input. Input क्या है वो कैसे समझे ये बताने के लिए डेटा टाइप्स होते हैं. Okay, so ये कैरेक्टर का मीनिंग है. I will tell you one thing. कंप्यूटर को समझने के लिए what I said, to make computer understand how to interpret something is basically data type. How to interpret something is data type. Simple. Okay. So how will you interpret number? Okay. So consider I have something like a which is equal to, or I won't go over there. Okay. I am passing user input, okay, as 1. Okay. I am passing user input as the number 1. Okay, and consider your calculator. Okay, so you write, when you write 1 plus 1, what does it give you? It gives you an output of 2, right? Have you ever tried doing this? No, it will say that these are not numbers. Nowadays in a calculator you won't even get those things, but if you have a old computer, you can just write over there in command prompt a plus a. It will give you that. First thing, you don't have the calculator command installed, and the second thing is that a plus a does not mean anything. Okay, what is it supposed to be doing, right? So the computer is being told that a is a string, that it cannot be added. You cannot add strings, you cannot subtract strings, you cannot multiply them. Okay, but here these are numbers, so you can add them, subtract them, multiply them, right? In same way, computer won't understand. Computer is the dumbest thing that you will ever know. Okay, computer does not understand what exactly one mean. Okay, so when you say that a number 1, it can be an number, say a whole number that is 1, or it can be string or a character that is Okay. Also, it can be floating number, that is 1.0. So this particular one can be represented in three different ways. Okay, you can perform addition subtraction here, you can perform addition subtraction here, but you cannot when it is considered as a string type or as a character type. So if you say that one that I am passing to you right now is a character, okay, so it cannot perform any operations on the character based thing, but it can perform operations on the whole number and the floating point objects. That is, the computer can perform operations on these objects. So to let computer understand what type of input or what type of a variable or identifier is, it has to know what is its data type. Okay, so these are the three major data types. They are integer, character and void. Also, sorry, float. Okay, so these are the four main primitive types of data that are supported by C++. ये built in भी है and these are primary. इसके बिना कुछ नहीं होने वाला. Okay, so let's understand what integer means first. Integer data types are whole numbers. Okay, so you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, something like that. But it won't contain something like 1.234 or 5.621. All these things are not allowed inside integer. Got my point? So it will have only plus minus as well, right? So it will have not only 0 1 2, but it will have minus 1 0, something like that. It can have positive, negative as well as zero numbers, but it cannot have decimal type numbers. Got my point? Okay, so integer is basically positive, negative as well as zero. All these things can be stored, but without decimal point. Here in float, here you cannot store these type of things. Obviously, also you cannot store something like A, B, C or anything, any special character other than number. You cannot say that it is an integer. The compiler will tell you. Come to your home and it will throw a chair at you. That is what the compiler is going to do. If you understand that you are passing A, B, C, D, something like that inside an integer. Right? So now let's get moving to what are floating types. What is a float? It will have minus 1.2335 minus 2.006. Okay? Then it will have 0. Then it will have something like 4.21 or 0.001 or something like that. Okay? So what floating type supports is that it supports this decimal number. Does it support integer? Yes, it does. If you write 1 and give it a type as float, data type अगर 1 का आप float convert कर देते हो, then it will be represented as 1.00. Okay? Will it be taking type as ABCD? No. The compiler will again compute. Okay? So it won't take something like A, B, something like this is not permitted inside floating type. Now, what is the difference between integer and a float based data type? Okay, so if you can support 1 as 1.00, 1235 and something like that, then what is the requirement of integer, right? Integer चाहिए क्यों? अगर नॉर्मल कोई भी नंबर अगर आप ये फॉर्मेट में रिप्रेजेंट कर सकते हो, नॉर्मल 1 को भी 1.00 में रिप्रेजेंट कर सकते हो, तो ये अलग से करप्टिंग की क्या जरूरत थी भाई, रख दो ना उसको वैसे. So the logic behind that is because these are floating point numbers, they require very high space requirement. Okay, so अगर इसमें से एक नंबर स्टोर होने को, if I am saying that it takes 1 byte ऑफ स्टोरेज, अगर एक इंटीजर ले रहा है, एक इंटीजर को स्टोर करने को अगर 1 बाइट का स्टोरेज लग रहा है, ओके, केबी एमबी वाली जो पार्ट होती है वो किलोबाइट मेगाबाइट होता है, आई एम सेइंग जस्ट वन इंटीजर, तो उसको अगर 1 बाइट का स्टोरेज लग रहा है तो फ्लोटिंग को अप्रोक्सीमेटली लगता है 5 to 6 बाइट्स. ओके, तो अप्रोक्सीमेटली 5 से 6 गुना ज्यादा स्टोरेज लगता है. ओके, now if you are asking someone their age, okay, can someone answer their age as 1.5 years old, या he is 23.4 years old? No, normally you say a whole number, right? That he is 5 years old, 10 years old, 23, 24 years old, something like that. So that time you can use integer data type. What my point? So integer data type is useful when you have whole numbers, okay, or when you are counting something. Okay, so consider you have a, okay, consider you want to count the number of cars that you have in front of you. Will there be a half car or something like that? No. What you will be doing, count cars, count 1 2 3 4, 4 cars are there, that's it. Okay, so integer can be useful when you know that this particular thing won't be converted anytime into float. On the other hand, something like float is important when you want to calculate in precision. So say what is the speed of this particular thing, what is the average that your car gives or your bike gives, what was the speed on which you were running, okay, what is the distance that you have traveled, what my point. So in that way, when you know that the things will have a decimal point, you will use floating point number. Okay, moving on to the next part, that is character based data. What is a character based data type? Okay, so what is the character based data type? Character based data type will have something like A, B, C, question mark. It will also have numbers 1, 0, 1, etc. Okay, but when you are writing number inside a character data type, you cannot perform operations on top of those numbers. Like you want to have someone's age and you want to display it as it is. Alright? Then you can use maybe basically character data type for the same. But if you want to calculate speed when you are given distance and time, then you cannot calculate if you have a character data type. Why? Because you cannot perform the operations for it. Character data type माने string है वो, मतलब उसके ऊपर कोई भी operations perform नहीं किए जा सकते. That is what character data type suggests. Okay, it can have operations like concatenation. What is concatenation? Let me tell you. So consider C1 is a character identifier and it has A. Okay, and C2 is again an identifier, it has B stored inside it. Now what I say, concat, let us see, concat C1 comma C2. What it will give me? What it will give me is AB. Okay, so concatenation मतलब क्या, एक के पीछे दूसरे को चिपकाना. Okay, So if you give numbers to character data set, it won't be considered as an integer or float. You cannot perform operations on top of it. Got my point? So that is it with character. Then we have void. Void is used to represent no data type. Right? No data type. No data type is void. Okay, you cannot store variables with name void. Okay, it can be used only with functions and arrays. Okay, you cannot use void as void A1, void B. No, you can't do that. Okay, then we will be going to understand something like this. What is this? Long, short, float, double. What is this? Okay, so let me tell you. So, okay, let's see. Or wait, I'll go for float. फ्लोट का नॉर्मल अगर कैरेक्टर है कि बिट एंड हैंडल ओनली 5 zeros. आई एम नॉट सेइंग दैट एवरी कंप्यूटर डज दैट, बट आई एम सेइंग प्रीमेच्योर पहले वाला कंप्यूटर या फिर कोई नॉर्मल डिवाइस जो कोई भी नंबर जो होगा इट विल बी रिप्रेजेंटिंग दैट नंबर एज 2. इफ यू गिव टू फ्लोट इट विल गेट कन्वर्टेड इनटू 2.12345. Okay, so 5 zeros after 2 is basically 2 over here, and it is the float character. Okay, so it is saving 2 along with these 5 characters. Now you want your results to be more precise. So what you tell is, I want this to be not only of 5 but of 10 characters. So now when you write a thing in here, it will be 2.1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 characters after decimal point. That is the level of precision that you are getting. So when you have normal float and you give an expression 10 by 3, what it is going to give you is 3.1, 3.333. Okay, so when you write the expression 10 by 3 in normal float, it will give you this. But what you want instead of this is you want 3.1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, sometimes this level of precision is required. So you are a scientist in NASA. At that time, this much precision is not enough. You need to know the entire number. Alright? So what you will do is, when you write a normal float, it will give you this. When you write double in front of float, it will give you this much. Got my point? There are also long and short, but they are for integers and characters. What does this long and short mean? Let me tell you. When you write integer, integer number, okay, and it has a storage of 1 byte. Okay, normally an integer is stored in 2 bytes. Normally an integer is stored as 2 bytes. Okay, so it can take value from -3, 7, 6, 8 till +3 if 32767. Okay, so when you write a normal integer, it can take value from minus 32768 till 32767. Okay, but consider you want to have bigger integer numbers, very big integer numbers. Okay, so you want to calculate something like distance from Earth to distance to Pluto. In that way, this won't be sufficient to you. Alright, so that time you write long. What it does is instead of storing it into 2 bytes, it will be storing it into 4 bytes. Okay, and in same way, this range will be then increased. What my point? Alright, so we have understood what are the primitive data types in C++. Okay, now all this we have seen. We'll be seeing what are structure, union and enumeration. Okay, so first that we will be seeing the derived data types. What are arrays, functions and pointers. So what are basically arrays? What do you think? Array is a collection of numbers. So consider so what is an array? In previous example, we wrote something like character name and it was given a user input. So let us see. I am saying character name can hold only one character, that is H. Will this be sufficient? Okay. So my name is considered Rishi. Okay, this is my name Rishi. And this particular thing is able to hold only one character. Is it okay? No, it's not. So I can create an array of characters. What it will do is array. It will not only hold one element, but it will hold H, then R, U, S, H, okay. So what this character array is doing is it is able to hold multiple elements of same data type. Okay, it can hold multiple elements of same data type. That is array. Okay. Then functions. Functions are basically a piece of code that you can reuse again and again. Okay. So consider you are defining a function having add operation, and it will take two numbers and give the addition of that number. Okay, so it is basically a small processing block. Okay, it will perform the operation and give you the output. That is what a function is. So what a function does is it basically is a piece of code that will perform a task and give you the output. Okay, so when you write functions, okay, so if you have a large number of elements, large big code, then what you do is basically you write functions. What these functions does is they perform only small tasks. Okay, so if your code gets an error, okay, it will tell you which function is going bad, what is the wrong thing that you are facing. Okay, then you have pointer. Pointer is nothing but a address location. Okay, so when you write pointer of name, it will give you RAM location where this name is particularly stored. In same way, These are user-defined functions that are structure, union, and enumeration. Structure is basically where you keep an information not just in an array format, but as your own defined structure. And same goes for union as well, and enumeration. Okay, so you define your own format. Like consider you have to create a database or create a store or storage of employees that are working in the team. Okay, so every employee will have a name, every employee will have a number, employee ID, what we call. Or in your case, if you are a student and training tutorials wants to have the code or want to have the code of all the students inside their class. So what it will have? It will have character array. Sorry, it will have structure or union or enumeration, depends on what suits them the best. So what it will have, that student, and inside student there will be three parts. The first part will hold the name, second part will hold the ID, the third part will hold which course you have taken. Got my point? So these are user defined things that we'll be learning later. We have learned the built-in data types and derived data types in today's lecture. Thank you. Thanks a lot for today.